Traders, today's video is covering a topic that you probably use all the time, and that is the trendline tools on TradingView that allow you to draw a trend line, ray, info line, extended line, trend angle, horizontal ray, vertical line, and crossline. So in this video, we're going to be covering all of these ultra popular and widely used tools. In fact, I'm just going to favorite each of them to get these tools on my floating toolbar, which you can now see right here in front of you. And I'm going to be walking through all of these tools so that you have a great understanding of how they work and what's possible. Now, in future videos, we will cover channels and pitchforks. These are sort of modified versions of the trendline tool, but they give you, for example, two lines in the parallel channel to create a channel, or a very sophisticated tool in technical analysis, the pitchfork. But for now, let's focus on these lines and especially show you the new features that have come to them. Now, many of you are probably curious about the trendline tool, so I'm going to start with that. I click and it's blue. Always remember, if it's highlighted blue, it means you have that tool selected. Now I'm looking at a daily chart of Bitcoin. Let me first make sure I do clear up my chart here. I'm going to delete this line. And I'm going to mark some levels down that are interesting to me as a trader. The first thing I'm going to observe here is since price has sort of corrected, I'm noticing that there's a slight uptrend for me. So I'm going to click my trend line, and the first thing I'm going to do is click a starting point. How about I use the bodies of the candle? So I'm going to click, and then I'm going to move my trend line up until I feel like it's in a good place, and I'm going to click again. Now what I've done here is I've created a trend line. Now in the world of trend line drawing, it is the sort of art and science of trying to find a trend in which buyers or sellers are sort of dominating that trend. In this case, there's sort of this mini uptrend, so buyers might be dominating. I'm starting from here. You can see it bounced here off the trend line, here off the trend line. And perhaps rather than buying right here, what I'm really going to do just by drawing this trend line is just wait for price to revisit this trend line, and then maybe I'll get in when it touches that trend line. So trend lines are great for risk management, for planning, for drawing on your chart, for observing what's possible. Also, always remember, for all of these drawing tools, you can right click on them and add an alert on these drawing tools. For trend lines, this is incredible because, for example, maybe you actually think it's going to break through the trend line and go lower. Well, you want to go out and enjoy your day. You want to get out there. You want to go, for drives. You want to go live your life. And so what you can do is, rather than watching this chart every second of every day, you right click and you create an alert on that trend line, and you make that alert so that it's crossing down below it or greater than, less than. All of these choices are yours. You can make a fully custom alert. Now, there's videos on our help center all about these alerts. There's also articles. Be sure to read those articles to understand the full process and just how far you can send these alerts, whether it's a webhook, notification in your app, and all sorts of other capabilities. But now back to trendline tools. A key part of this video is talking about the settings feature. Now, I should just back up 1 second here, because everything that I've said so far effectively applies to the ray, info line, extended line, trend angle, horizontal ray, vertical line, and cross line. I'm going to briefly walk through all of these tools, but before I get to each of them, it's very important to show you the settings menu so that you know what's possible with these drawing tools. All you have to do is double click on the drawing tool just like that. Or of course, you could right click on it and then go to settings, and just like that, you open up your settings menu. Now, for those of you new to TradingView, the settings menu is where you can access all of the customizations and features that come with the corresponding trendline tool that you've created. I'm going to start with the style button here, then we'll work down through text, coordinates, and visibility. First of all, let's talk about style, because when you open up your trendline tools, you have some fantastic data points and features to access. First of all, you may notice that my line's a dotted line. Well, you should know that you can change your line to any color or design that fits your specific needs. So for this part of the video, I'll actually change the color to sort of a blue. And then I'm also going to change the line to, let's just make a solid line. That's probably what you're using, a solid line. So I just click solid line. I'm also going to make the line thicker but I could also make it quite thin. This is all a style or preference that is dependent on your needs. I'm going to make the line thick just because, hey, for this video, I want you to see the trend line and just not miss it even for a second. Now let's go through some other additional features. By the way, you can add these arrows to the end of it. Either way, by the way, if you think it's going down or up, add an arrow. And now it's time to talk about the toggle boxes. Now, these are broken into two specific features of the trendline tool you're using. Up here at the top are essentially features for the line itself. Okay, so if you want to make some quick adjustments to the line, here are your features right here. Extend the line left, right, middle point, price labels. All right, let's get into this a little bit more. Extend the line left. Well, that's going to extend the line left all the way down through the chart. Extend the line right. Well, that's going to extend the line right all through the chart. These are really effective features for going back in time to see if the levels held previously or to plan out well into the future. So what I mean to say is if you think this trend line could take Bitcoin all the way back up into the $100,000 range, well, you would extend this trend line all the way up and to the right. And then ultimately, here's your guide, this trend line. You've just extended it to the right. And if it breaks, well, that's the end of the trade. The point here is that by extending the line, you can very quickly and neatly and essentially with ultimate precision extend that line at the same angle all the way across your chart. Now, here's why that's also kind of interesting. Let's say you're drawing a line that is, you're looking at a support line. So let's just say you draw a line across your chart like this, and you want to see if that line's ever been tested in prior historical moments. Double click, extend it to the left, zoom out, and it looks like it's never been. This is the first time. This is the first time this line and this price action is really coming into play. Didn't touch that line in 2021, didn't touch the line later in 2021, didn't even touch the line in 2024. But you can do that by extending the line and then zooming out on your chart. Really effective for finding historical price action. Now, I should remind you all that we have this wonderful magnet tool, which is think of it like a power up with your trendline tool. So down here at the bottom are sort of your power ups for your drawing tools. You can stay in drawing mode. Thus, you're only really drawing trend line time and time again, right? With every click, I'm still drawing trend lines. There's just no stopping it at that point. Then, of course, there is the magnet mode. Now, if you want to draw really precise trend lines or rays or info lines, extended lines, trend angles, horizontal rays, vertical lines, or cross lines, you can do that with the magnet tool. So check this out. If I click the trend line tool, then go over here and click the strong magnet tool, what I'm now doing is snapping my trend line to the nearest OHLC value. OHLC, as many of you know, means open, high, lower, close. So to draw an ultimate precise trend line, I move my mouse and there it is. It's snapping. The magnet is connecting to the lowest point. Now I can move my trend line and connect it to what I think is the next lowest point and click. Let me turn off this extend right, extend left. Now let me extend it right. And now I've got a trend line that is literally with the magnet tool, without a shadow of a doubt, connected perfectly to these low points on the chart. There's just no denying it. With the magnet tool, my trend line is quite literally perfect the way it's connected to these 2 points. So keep that in mind as well as I go about this tutorial and as you get started with these tools. Now I'm going to double click here because it's time now to move on. Well, let me also quickly explain the middle point. Pretty cool feature actually if you want to see the exact middle of your trend line. So you can see here I've got this middle dot that I just can't miss. That's the very middle, meaning from this bottom point of the trend line to this top point of the trend line, the point in between both those points is right here in the middle. So double click, and now it's time to move on to the stats. Now these features are an update to this tool. This video is a 2025 special. It is being made for all of the traders who are just getting started on TradingView or looking to get into these advanced stats. So, okay, with this tool, I think it's time that I should actually extend it outward quite a bit. So let's do just that. Extend it outward. Now let's double click And now let's show you these cool. So first of all, the price range tool, really fantastic. Now, why is that fantastic? Because with a single click, you get the data about how far this tool is from point A, where you started, to point B. It's an $18,000 move on this chart. Now, I'm looking at Bitcoin, BTC USD, but it's an $18,000 move. This is quite a big move. It just gives you the context you need for this trend line. If I double click again, I'm just going to double click here. I can also add percent change. Well, this is really wonderful because this is the percent capabilities of the move. It would be a 23% move, or $18,000 from point A to point B. So now you can utilize all of your trendline tools to draw and visualize targets as well, with real statistical data right in front of you that is effectively irrefutable, so that you can understand if this trend line makes sense in terms of the scope of the move you're measuring. Change in pips. So if you're a Forex trader, you can also see the pips here as well. So let me just move this trend line just a little bit. You can see now the pips. This line is getting a little overloaded. So let me reduce it. So double click, style. We've got change in pips now as well. So we've got the dollar move, the percent move, and the change in pips. And by the way, what's really great about this is if you have these stats open, look at how they change in real time depending on how the trend line changes. So you can actually see the data evolve before your eyes depending on your drawing, your target, your projection, or any of your research. Now I'm going to double click here and keep working down this, because it's very important that you know that you have these specific capabilities with the trendline tool. We've got bars range, date and time range, distance, angle, and of course, we can always show stats. You may have noticed that when I was exiting out of this box here was out of the settings menu, this box was disappearing. Well, if I click always show stats, now they will always be there. I can always choose to put them, I can also choose to put them in a different area. What's pretty fantastic is auto is a personal favorite of mine, and I would explore you to try this if you're adding stats, because it's going to automatically adjust depending on your chart. So really fantastic tool to keep the data in your visual, right here in front of you in your visual distance, without sort of making it too cluttered. So if I move the chart left, you can see it automatically pops. If I move it up, automatically goes downward. Really, really nice feature for those who are going through a lot of charts. Now, just to remind you all about why these stats matter. Well, the bars range is really nice because how long could this move occur? So 34 bars, I'm on a daily chart, so 34 days. So now you know that you basically are saying there's going to be a 26% move in 34 days. Does that sound realistic? Does that sound like something you want to measure? Does that sound like a trade you actually want to take? You can see the time, the distance, and the price action all involved in the very trend line you're using when you access these stats. Distance, you can see here, you've got your 426px. And then I think what's really cool is angle. So if anyone's studied geometry or into math, this is about a 47-degree angle. And that just keeps you sort of up to date on the steepness of this curve. So for example, if we were to go straight up, this is a 85-degree angle that, anyone who's traded or watched markets long enough know that these angles are really hard to see. They generally only come from big events, breaking news, sudden changes that change everything. So by keeping your eyes on the angle, you can get a feel for, how intense is that slope upward or downward that you're measuring. I'm now looking at a 53-degree angle. So those are the settings menu. And please do keep in mind that this works for all of the trendline tools that you have here. So actually, I'm just going to exit out of this now and just change up the gears a little bit here, because I want to talk about the ray. The ray is a tool for you to basically create a ray that is dependent on 2 points on the chart that you select. What's nice about the ray is you have your starting point, which you can change. And then you have this middle point, which is sort of like a fulcrum that you can drag up or down. And once you place this middle point, now you can pivot the ray all the way around that middle point. So the ray gives you this ability to pivot and create lines of your choice on the chart. And of course, it's up to you on how you choose to use these, but it's just a different way to draw trend lines on the chart. And once again, don't forget, you have all of the same features that I've shown you on this tutorial video. The excellent stats tools are all here for you to utilize. You can once again turn on auto. You can also extend the line as needed. And of course, change the color of the line, the look and feel, so that it really fits exactly what it is you're going for. So the ray, by the way, does allow you to extend it as well in either direction. And some people may actually utilize the ray for things like trend lines or even support and resistance, just because of the way you can, use that center point as a fulcrum to redraw the line 180 degrees, all the stats right here before my eyes. So that's the ray tool. And now moving on, I quickly want to go through the info line, which is essentially the info line is essentially very similar to your trendline tool, but it's automatically going to show you all the info that you want to see. So it's all the data and info you want paired up perfectly with the trend line. I'm going to delete this. Now, as we move on here, the next up that you have here is your extended line. Your extended line gives you the ability, similar to the array, to create an extended line as needed all the way across your chart, pre-built, by the way. So every line on this tool is already extended to left and to the right. So if I were to actually make this tool, let's see here, if I take this tool here and just make it a 180 degree, then zoom out as much as possible, it's an extended line. It is just extending infinitely across the chart. If you're looking at an asset with lots of price data and you have a massive monitor and you want to see your trend line effectively go all the way across the screen, all throughout price history, this extended line might be helpful. So now, as you can see here, this is a log chart. It's Bitcoin. If I take this log chart all the way down to here, what you'll see is I have this extended line just going all the way across the chart, and I can shrink my price scale. And here you are. You have this, you've really just made the long-term picture of the chart fundamentally different, and you've got this entire extended line now to work with. I'm just going to click the A here to go to auto, delete the extended line, keep working my way down the list because there's so much more to show you as well. So the horizontal line, horizontal ray, I'll just say the horizontal ray is really much like the ray tool and the trendline tool into one. The difference is that it's a ray that you create horizontally. Click once and the ray jets outward, just like that. Great for looking for support and resistance. Vertical line, well, you guessed it, just what it sounds like. You can add a vertical line for your chart. I've seen traders use the vertical line tool to mark important calendar dates. So here comes an earnings report, write it down. Then you can create an alert day before earnings, right? So you can actually mark down these critical and important events on a chart, maybe options expiration, and then create an alert based on that. In addition, what's very important about this tool as well is that you can also pair it with the horizontal line to get the cross line. So the cross line is 2 in 1. You now have essentially a horizontal line and a vertical line in one cross line. Maybe you're using this for targets, for trades, for support and resistance, anything of the sort. It's all here for you within this tool. The big picture here is that as you dive into these different lines, you have access to all of them as a TradingView member and all of the advanced features they come with. Now it is time for me to talk about some of the other features. The next feature I want to talk about is I'm going to use the horizontal line. And the reason why I'm drawing this line here is because I'm sort of identifying that this was once a top, then it was some resistance, then it appeared to be a key breakout point. And so I use the horizontal line to perfectly place this line on the chart to mark these levels. But one thing I have not shown you all yet is the text capabilities of these tools. So in the text feature, I can type now, watching this price. And now I've got the text right here on my specific trendline drawing tool. In addition, as needed, I can change the font size of this of the text on this drawing tool. So everyone has a different chart, a different trading style, a different strategy. And with that, you can pair it with the text, font size, color, look, and feel that you want your chart to represent. So I'm going to utilize this blue here. I'm going to make it italics, going to make this a little larger. And how about I put this, let's actually put this in the middle of the line, then move it to the right. Nope, that's too noisy. Up to the left. That's not bad. It actually did look better in the center. Let's go back to how we started. So the point here is that you can add text to all of your tools. And depending on the tool you're utilizing, you've got this great way to keep the text connected to the drawing tool. So no matter where I move on the chart, I can always see I'm watching this price. Great for price history, for research, for planning. You're effectively keeping notes, tasks, reminders, insights, all connected to the very lines that you draw on your chart. Now I'm going to double click because now you have a great feel for the style, how to utilize this with Trendline tools, the text, how to dive into this with Trendline tools. Now let's talk about visibility. Coordinates is really something I don't have to spend too much time on. Coordinates gives you the ability to literally place the Trendline tool exactly at a level that you type. So I'm going to type in 70,000 and watch this Trendline tool change. And it was such a small change, you didn't notice it. So let me move it down to 50,000 so you can't miss it. So you can see what I mean. 50, 1, 2, 3. There you go. See that? Exact level. So coordinates, quite helpful if you want to draw a very precise trend line at an exact level, 70,000 of your needs. Now, visibility is the final tool I'm going to wrap up on for all these trendline tools. Super effective tool as you get started with trend lines. And if you watch this far into the video, you are getting a really helpful bonus feature. So let's go back to this daily chart. And you know what? This trend line looks pretty good on a daily chart, actually. But now what I'm going to do is go back to that horizontal line. Now I'm going to pick my trend line, click the starting point here, and move it up the chart just like this. Zoom in a little bit. Okay, so I've got my trend line there. Now, you know what? I want to go a little bit more granular. So I'm going to go to a 1 minute chart. So I go to this 1 minute, or let's go to actually a 30-minute chart. So I go a 30-minute chart, and look, here's my trend line. But you know, on this 30-minute trend line, on this 30-minute chart, this trend line doesn't mean as much to me. In fact, I want to draw a new trend line on a 30-minute chart. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's what visibility is all about. Because watch what I do here. So if this is my 30-minute trend line and this is my daily trend line, I'm going to utilize visibility to make that happen. First of all, this is my 30-minute trend line. I'm now back on a daily chart. So I'm going to double click on the 30-minute visibility. I'm going to turn off minutes. I'm going to turn off hours. I'm just going to keep days, weeks, months. Oh, sorry, I want to keep minutes on this one. Turn off days, weeks, months. Now it's gone. I'm on a daily chart. Now this longer term trend line, I'm going to double click visibility. I am going to turn it off for all these small time frames like seconds, minutes, hours. Okay. So watch what happens when I go to the 30-minute chart. There's the trend line I drew on the 30-minute. Whoops, I moved it. There's the trend line I drew on the 30-minute chart. If I go to the daily, it's gone, but look at this, my long-term trend line is back. So you can use these visibility features to ensure that all of the trend line tools you draw are perfectly shown on the time interval you want and nothing else. So it's just a wonderful way to ensure that depending on the time frame you're analyzing, you are seeing the levels, lines, details, notes, stats, and facts that matter to you. Now, we're almost 25 minutes into this video, and at this point, you've gotten a complete walkthrough of all of these tools and how they use, specifically reminding you about the advanced features that are available in the Trendline Tools section within Settings, because this gives you the ability to see some fantastic settings about the trend lines you draw. And that way you can just analyze the chart, the trade, and the price action that much better with the stats right in front of you. So we hope that you enjoyed this video, and please do remember there are over 400 videos on our YouTube channel about all of these features and capabilities. And in our Help Center, we've got articles and more to walk you through these tools as well. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to check in on our Help Center and blog for new updates always coming to you. Thanks for watching.